Life, Love, and Lipstick.
Welcome to Life, Love, and Lipstick with Leslie Stewart and myself, Tracy Lynn.
Hello.
Oh, excited. Look at you, all pretty in pink.
Oh, thank you. You know what? You look so fantastic in black. I think we always, between the two of us, we bring in this.
Yeah, we're like a yin and a yang. We're always the opposite. And of course, I've got my classic pulled back hair because that's what happens when your day goes just the way that it has.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems to be the trend every time I'm on here. But this is the good part of my day, and this is the part that I look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, this past year, so January was my birthday. I said to myself, I was going to give myself a gift, and that gift was going to be self-investment.
Mm-hmm.
It involves self-care, but I wanted to invest in something that was going to make me either a better person or just kind of detox the brain.
Yes.
Right?
I figured that's where you were going. Yes.
Yeah, like just to kind of say, hey, this is me. So I'm super excited because today the teacher of this mastermind class, Rachel Baribeau, she's coming on, and I took her 5-week program, which I will give a big shout out to Michael Detelier. He's from the Saints Radio, Who Dat Nation. He introduced us. Yes, he introduced the two of us. He connected us. He said, Tracy, you got to interview her. And again, power of social media. I've never met either one of these two in person. It's all been through social.
Right.
And I read on her stuff. She had a mastermind class. Perfect. So I was super excited. I signed up. I'm investing in myself. But here's the thing. Am I going to follow through or not? Because that seems to be something many of us, we don't follow through. We start, but we don't follow through.
Right. Especially when you're home and you're online and it's so easy to bail.
Yes.
Right.
It was every Sunday night. We hopped on a Zoom and you became friends instantly with so many strangers. And when she started talking the first class, I don't know if you've heard this, Leslie, when you have walls up, like I am a person that has lots of walls up. If you chip away at some rock, you will eventually find a diamond.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The first class, she struck my wall and it just like floodgates. I'm going to try to get through this without being very emotional because she
had a huge impact on you. I know she did. I remember you telling me because we were just meeting at that time, and you were really impacted by her.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to introduce you to her. So I didn't have Kleenex today.
Yeah. So you brought your roll of toilet paper.
I brought my toilet paper. I went to the roll, I just grabbed it and I'm like, I might need you today. So,
yep.
I mean, as we said, our show is about vulnerability. It's being honest, keeping it real. And up next, I can't wait to introduce you to Rachel Baribeau. Welcome back to Life, Love, and Lipstick. And as I said just previously, Rachel Baribeau, somebody that I am not only so proud of, but she is just so inspiring, so motivating, and her energy is so electrifying. And I'm so excited, Rachel, to have you on. Thank you for coming here, spending some time. You look amazing. Now, I want to get right into this. You have broken so many records when it comes to sportscasting. First college football, SiriusXM. Your resume is incredible, but that's not why we're here, because one day you just said, hey, I'm done. I quit. But there's so much more to your story. And see, now I said I wasn't going to start crying and you just bring it out in me. Oh, okay.
Rachel, Tracy has a roll of toilet paper handy because she didn't have any tissue. So this is what she's using. Well, because she's so inspired by you.
I know. So, Rachel, you quit your job, and we're going to have all your links up because I was telling everyone I did your mastermind class, and that's something that I know another session is becoming available for people to sign up on. 5 weeks. And you shared so much with us because it's not what you have done, it's what you have been through. So I'm diving right into this. The why, because this is a big thing about domestic violence, toxic relationships. and realizing that we are not too much. We are not too sensitive. And I'm going to cry. So Rachel, please tell me more.
Yeah, you're going to make me cry now too. Because I once lived my life not as a queen, because I once lived my life not loving myself, because I once lived my life not knowing my value, because I once lived my life with no standards and boundaries. And so I would let people treat me any which way because I didn't really love myself. And once I figured that out, and I say figured that out in a very loose term, because I call myself a queen under construction. And Tracy knows this. I will be under construction until the day that I die. I'll never stop. Matter of fact, it's funny. I'm home with my dad for a little bit, and I'm reading this book, How to Do the Work, Dr. Nicole Lepra. But I'm always reading something. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to do those things, queens, because I call women queens.
Yes, it's all about kings and queens.
I love that.
Yes. And so why is this? The why was I loved sportscasting. I loved it, but I found what sets my soul on fire. And so for me to continue, ladies, to continue doing something that was disingenuous to my soul, that I didn't love anymore, that didn't light my soul on fire, would be a waste of my time on this planet. And so I made the crazy leap, the crazy jump, and left that was the first female host on SiriusXM. I was voting for the Heisman and hosting the college football playoff, and I just walked away from it all.
But I remember you saying, I saw in a previous interview where you said, you had a calling, and you always wanted to give back. And I know you were building these relationships with these players, these young men. And it was like, it was all meant to be. The path that you took was to get you to where you are now, right? To give back and be passionate about it.
Yeah, such a good point. I say my girlfriend that works at the NCAA, and I absolutely love her. She says, Rachel, she said, your 17 years as a sportscaster was a runway for you to do what you do now.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage any beautiful woman who is listening to this podcast, any man who's listening to this podcast, you're not the sum of your mistakes. And actually all the mistakes and all the stumbles and all the failures and all the things that didn't light my fire, didn't work, actually led me to where I am today. And whether you're a person of faith or not, I am. My program, I'm changing the narrative, is not, but I am. But Romans 8:28 says, he'll make something beautiful of all things, the happy, the sad, the good, the bad. And so for me, I did find what sets my soul on fire. And I wanted to run to it with everything I have. And now, not only do I get to speak to athletes, not only do I get to speak to law enforcement and border patrol and all of these things, I now get to do masterminds and meet people like Tracy and meet lifelong friends. And hopefully you'll go to Costa Rica with us next year. But it was amazing. And so much so that I only am offering it twice a year, because Tracy alluded to it. It was so hard. It was so emotionally taxing. There was so much change happening in people and stuff being revealed and people figuring out things and my own story that I felt like I ran an emotional marathon 2 times a week for 5 weeks. And it was interesting. Some of the feedback was like, hey, I wish it was longer. And I'm like,
you're like, I'm done.
Only knew what it took. It couldn't have been any longer.
So you have saved so many people's lives, no matter if it was their second life, third life, 8th chance around. You were so honest with your story. And that's something where I wasn't expecting that. I've never done a mastermind class. This was my self-improvement, my self-investment gift for myself for my birthday, which I got to share with everybody in the Changing the Narrative program that night. And it must be so satisfying. I know it's exhausting emotionally to open up. And you kept saying, you're a queen, believe that you are a queen, act like you are a queen. And you're very persistent, and you're like, come on. But you believed it. You believe in the souls that are watching. You believe in people. It must be an incredible feeling to look back and see all the athletes that you have saved, let alone just people.
That's such a good point. And I say this, Buddy Joe wants to say hello, by the way.
Hi, buddy.
This is real life, right? We all learned real life during the pandemic. He's over at the door and he's whining. And,
yes.
And I'm like, come on. Like, what?
My cat was meowing the other day at the door.
So real life. But I'm like, what would this be if there wasn't like some funny dog in some wonderful therapy dog? But yes, it is so gratifying. And here's what I say. People are my currency. People are my currency. Therefore, I'm a billionaire. And so I don't count my success by money in the bank. And money in the bank is fantastic because it allows me to help and touch more people. But money in the bank is not how I validate my existence, my purpose, everything that I do on this planet. When I see Tracy, this was amazing. The first night we had our first session, she goes on the air and she's talking about my program. And I sat there, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I sat there and just bawled, like big, salty tears.
Like I'm going to right now.
And the funny part of it was, and I always try to do takeaways for people that are listening to podcasts and to shows. You guys do such a great one, is listen to that still small voice. During the pandemic, I recognized that I had only done these talks, and I'm changing the narrative. I'd only done these things for colleges or for Border Patrol or for law enforcement, but I had never put out a talk publicly. And what I learned during the pandemic was we're all human. A lot of us are hanging by a string. We've been through hard times. And I recognized that I needed to put out my gifts to the world, and those that would need it would come. And so I spent the entire pandemic trying to figure out how to do it, what to do. And here's a funny part of it too, is so many people were like, you need to price it at $1,500. And I'm like, no. I said, again, following my gut and my soul for this 5-week course, this mastermind, I said, people have been gutted by the pandemic financially all over the world. People are trying to put food on their table. People are trying to, keep lights on. People are trying to afford Pampers. For me right now, that is not something I'm going to do. Maybe in the future, one day when people get back on their feet. But I said, I want to offer this course to people, and it ended up being $47. And I did it because I am you are me. And I knew that people needed it badly, and I wanted it to be accessible. And so I would just say to anybody who's listening to this podcast, follow that still small voice, follow that gut call, right? It won't lead you wrong.
Mm-hmm. So Rachel, when, talk a little bit about your experience with these athletes, these young, college football players or whatever they may, and you're going in and you're talking to them, and that relationship compared to doing a master class, it's a very, to just, again, as you say, open it up to the world. So very different groups of people, perhaps.
Well, one for the most part is an adult, Tracy is an adult. Mm-hmm. And somebody attending a university might be 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. So that was very interesting for me and challenging. And I love a challenge. I always say no is just an opportunity to step back and reflect, except in dating.
Good point.
No is a hard no. Okay. Because that might be stalking. So that's a hard no. But in everything else, no or a challenge is just an opportunity to step back and reflect and say, okay, how do I handle this? Do I need more experience? Is it not the right time? No is just really a great opportunity for me to get better. And so that was such a great question that you asked, because I had to learn how to present to an adult what I do for college athletes. Mm-hmm. And so there was a difference there. And that's a good catch by you, talking to an adult like Tracy, or one of the, 59, 60 people signed up for this thing, which just blew my mind the first time out. And for those that maybe are listening, we had 1 week, we talked about taking off your mask, not your COVID mask, your proverbial mask. We had 1 week that was one of my favorites that talked about building your own field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. We talked 1 week about relationships, we talked another week about loving yourself and self-care and mental health. And then what does it mean to walk this out in your own life? So it was really, to me, an awesome challenge of how to take what I do with an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old king or queen and apply that to a 60-year-old man or a 50-year-old woman or a 25-year-old woman. And is that there were 25-year-olds and 6-year-olds and pink, purple, black, and white, and we all became this little mastermind family.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely an incredible experience. Now I want you to take me back to a moment being in the public eye. People knew your name, people knew you.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened that was extremely private, but of course, nothing is ever private when you are in the public eye. That moment that changed your life forever, because you talk about that as well. And it's key in life. It's called forgiving, forgiveness, forgiving the person that hurt you. That moment, we talk about domestic abuse, toxic relationships. Why was it so important for you to tell people about that?
I don't know if I've been asked that question in all these years. I think it was, which means it's a good question, which I think it was important because I remember looking back the shame that I felt around it. I remember looking back, people saying to me, but you'll hurt him. You'll hurt his chances of this. You know, are you sure you want to tell? Are you sure you want to do those things? Like, and it was somehow came back on me.
Right.
And I'm like, but I'm the person who was drugged from one end of the house to the other by my hair. I'm the victim here. But this happens to us so much in this world. It's not a Canadian problem. It's not an American problem. It's a world problem where the victim ends up feeling shame. And so I think that I wanted to talk about it to say to every other victim out there, you're not alone. I love you. I see you. I hear you. I'm holding space for you. It's not your fault. You don't have to feel shame. And I think the other thing for me, the distinction has been for me is that I never wanted to out my accuser. You know, for me, like Tracy talked about, it has been about forgiveness. You know, it was a long time ago. He's made amends. He has a family now, and I don't have any interest whatsoever in outing him. I have an interest in telling my story because it happened to me and I own that story. But another distinction is I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. I choose that because I think in life and in certain parts of my life, there are things that I could have just used as a crutch my entire life. You can, you know, woe is me. It's easy to do. It's easy to do with the pandemic right now and life and things that are happening. And I just choose to be a victor and not a victim. But I think I did it to speak out for other victims. And I also did it for this is to teach men how to be the kind of men, how to be kings that would be in that house that night, because there were 3 other men in that house that night. And one came to the door and my boyfriend at the time told him to go back to, you know, a bunch of expletives, go to blank back to bed. And he did. He shut the door and this continued going on for the next 30 minutes. I was drugged from one end of the house to the other by my hair. And so I also do it to teach men, hey, I say to them, if you were in that house that night, would you have helped me? And they scream, they cry, they jump up and down. They some rock back and forth. Some come to me afterwards privately and say, I saw this growing up. Thank you. You know, some you could just tell they're internalizing it. But it really, I try to put them in the house that night because I tell them life is going to come at you and it's going to present a situation like this. And I hope to gosh, it's not somebody getting drugged from one end of the house to the other by their hair. But life is going to ask you, are you a king? Are you a follower? Are you a king? Are you a follower? And the world's got enough followers. We desperately need more kings and queens to stand up and be who they were created to be.
I remember the conversation over the last few years with the Me Too movement stepping forward and really making waves and talking to athletes, you know, male athletes and saying, you know, when you're in the locker room and these guys are degrading women and they're, you know, they're speaking out and they're just, you know what, it's okay for you to step up and say, hey, you know what, that's not okay.
Yes.
Right. And, you know, kind of to go off of your point there with the other guys in the house. I mean, moving forward, the other guys need to say, no, this is not okay.
That's
just
what I
because
teach.
You're my buddy, right?
That's what I teach.
Yeah.
And it has been the most validating thing on the planet. I was just telling a group of men the other night, just a couple of nights ago, I did a talk, and I said, in the 4.5 years I've been doing this, almost 5, it'll be 5 in August. I've had 3 or 4 messages, 3 particularly I can remember off the top of my head. And those 3 messages, none of them knew each other. We say, you know, there's each other from Adam's House Cat. You know, I didn't know him from Adam's House Cat. And they didn't know each other. But I would ask them, all 3 of them, I said, how were you a king? And they said, well, I was in a group of men today, and they were calling girls, you know, all kinds of names. And I just said, hey, I don't talk about women like that. And I don't hang around people that talk about women like that. And kind of dropped the mic and walked away. And I said, how did that make you feel? And they said, like a king. And so what I teach them tactical skills for this. What I teach them is what if it were your sister? What if it were your daughter? What if it were your mama, you know, somebody was talking about? And when that realization comes home, then I say to them, because it is somebody's sister. It is somebody's daughter. It is somebody's mom. And you could see the light bulb go off in their head. And one of my kings that I just mentioned, he actually told me, he told the guy, he was like, hey man, I just met this lady. Her name's Rachel. She kind of, you know, she taught us not to do this. And this is why I don't do it. Because what if it were your sister, your daughter? And he said, the guy actually went, I never thought about it like that. And I'm like, so because of me, some guy in Texas went to wherever he's from, had this conversation, and some kid is now, hopefully, that he said, not talking about women like trash.
Right.
Because of you, Rachel, because of you, I keep saying it. You've changed so many lives. You have saved so many lives. I know with our group that we had for the 5-week program, which I will be pumping out the next one so that you can get, I encourage people to take this. You go in thinking you're doing it for one reason. After the first night, oh my gosh, you're just like, oh, because you talk about unmasking and not, and we all have a mask on. We have many layers of masks. And the first, I remember responding to you after that class and saying, my mask was cemented on my face and you cracked it.
Ooh.
And it wasn't because I didn't want to show the world my vulnerability and I didn't want people to see who I was. I was groomed to hide. I was groomed to like always feel like you're not good enough in a way. And you start cracking masks and the importance of unmasking. I don't know if you can quickly just touch on that. Unmasking and the importance of why you preach that.
Because people are drawn to your imperfections more than they ever are your perfections. Check that out. People are drawn to your imperfections more than they ever are to your perfections. So, and the mask that you were wearing, Tracy, I wore that mask too. And that mask almost killed me. I almost took my own life. Because I wore a mask and telling people and using the cell phone to isolate after my mom passed away and telling everybody, I'm fine, I'm good. I'm as good as can be. I'm fine. And what they didn't know was that, you know, I was about to lose my house because I had financially supported my mom during her cancer battle, which I do not regret. And I didn't really work. You know, we took the trips, we danced, we spent time together. And, I just broken up with my boyfriend. I lost my mom. It was a perfect storm of crap. And this mask of telling people, hey, I'm good. Everything's good. And then one, I say the perfect storm, I call it the dark night of the soul. One night I literally heard voices telling me to take my own life. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that I now know how to unmask, and I teach people around the world how to unmask. And I tell people, and Tracy knows this, the weight without your mask it's insane. The difference, like it is so taxing to go, I'm good, and then you're, or maybe you're going through depression or anxiety or grief or heartbreak or whatever it is. And you're going, or you're self-sabotaging, you're stupid, you're fat, you're lazy, you're too this, you're too that, you're too old, you're underqualified, you're overqualified, whatever it is. And then you're, everything's great. It is exhausting, and it will eat your soul away. And it's why our depression, anxiety to the roof, and then it's more important than ever, because we're now dealing with mental health with this animal of COVID that we've never seen before. And it's so important to say to you, Lesley, how are you? No, how are you really?
Right.
Really? Like, I don't want the pleasantries. I just tell me, girl, what's going on with you? Like, how are you? Like, I see you, I hear you, I'm making space for you, and your story matters to me.
I feel that so many people are, they're afraid to speak out and speak up when someone asks them. So that's why they say, as you say, oh, I'm fine. You know, I'm good. I'm fine. And then they lay their head on their pillow at night and it all just pours out, or they're on the edge of tears all the time because they can never get it out. Right.
Because here's what I think, and here's what I teach in the movement. We think people don't want to hear our burdens. We're conditioned. Shame will tell you the lies of mental health. The other thing, here's another takeaway for everybody. Factor feeling. The things that I was feeling when I was having the dark night of the soul was I was unlovable. I couldn't keep anything. I was a failure. Nobody was going to love me. I was broken and defective. Those were all feelings. None of those things, guys, were facts. So if you can stop your monkey brain in the moment and say facts over feelings. The other thing I want to tell your audience is this, if I'd known this could have changed what happened to me that night, but I'm actually grateful for it, because what was meant to kill me actually gave me a blueprint to be able to save other people's lives. And I always like to say, I've got buckets of water for people that are still in the burning house, and I'm going back in. I'm going to cry, but I want everybody to know they need to have 3 people. And Tracy learned this in the blueprint. You need to have 3 people, and those 3 people need to know they're your 3 people. So if you're ever struggling mentally, if you're ever suicidal, if you've ever on the side of the road, and you've got a flat tire, those 3 people know that you're going to call them hell or high water. If you've left your gas card at home, they're going to, whatever. So those 3 people need to know that you're your people. And so if you're struggling like I was in the middle of the night at 3:00 in the morning, the lies, the shame told me, don't bother anybody, don't burden anybody. And I had people tell me afterwards, just bawl their eyes out and look at me and say, you don't even know what that would have done to me, Rachel. If you had taken your life, you would have wrecked me. I would have never come back from it. So the lie was that I couldn't burden people. But listen to me, people would rather carry your people would rather carry your burdens than carry your casket.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you'll hear people say that if someone has taken their lives, everybody around that person blames themselves, right? Why wasn't I there? Or maybe she was trying, or he was trying to tell me something and I wasn't listening. So you're right. People do. Everybody around that person blames themselves.
Yeah. So listen, get your 3 people. Let those 3 people know that and then teach those 3 people to go do it to other people. And then it's my business manager, who happens to be an AA sponsor. He's the one that taught me this. And he said, if you get to the 3rd person and somebody hasn't answered, the 4th person is a crisis hotline. If you're in a bad spot, the 4th person is a crisis hotline. And I also have a saying, you talked about it, Lesley, about, that mask and laying your head on the pillow at night. And this has helped a lot of people throughout the pandemic, both kings, queens, young and old. And I'll say it twice, because I think it's a mantra that I live by. And one of my queens actually loved it so much, she painted it and sent it to me. And it's, do the best you can with what you have to the best of your ability, look for somebody to help, and then rest. You do this every day. Do the best you can with what you have to the best of your ability, look for somebody to help, and then rest. And some days, to be quite vulnerable, ladies, like we all are being in this podcast, and living our life vulnerably and raw, is some days your best, especially during the pandemic. Some days I had a long to-do list, but mentally I wasn't good. And self-care to me was getting in my recliner and watching reruns of The Office. because it was stupid and it was funny and it made me laugh and it took me away. Right. This, as I mentioned, this book is self-care to me. You know, there's surface self-care, like physical self-care, and then there's deep, you know, inner child work, therapy, forgiving people, feeling emotions. And I'm a fan of either one. But I just want people to know you can means I'm not good right now. I take a break for self-care.
You have the purpose, the passion is just so energetic. Like we connect with you instantly. And you've given us a platform, 5 weeks, and you do change lives, but people have to be open to it. And you talk about being vulnerable. People watching this are going to go, oh my God, I've never seen Tracy crack a tear or even become, crackly because my emotions. You taught us that it's okay to feel our emotions. And I can't stress that enough. Like, you're very passionate about saying you're not too sensitive.
You're not. You're perfect.
And it feels so good to hear, especially another female, actually understand you and help you along the way. So a 5-week program, we're going to have another one, I believe, this summer, which is very exciting and something that I know that so many people we know will connect with you after this. And then you do your college tours and you're speaking to athletes, saving lives, giving them a chance. And like you said, teaching them to be kings. And we are raising kings ourselves, actually. Lesley and I, we both have sons and I have a daughter. So it's little kings and queens in training.
Yes.
And Lesley, you'll say this too. We have to be the role model for them. And you just so much. So Rachel, thank you. Like, incredible. I know this could go on forever. And I know that your time is valuable, but changing the narrative. You also have some swag coming out. We can get some kings and queens stuff.
I do. And I want to share something with you because you both talked about raising sons. I want to share something with you that I just shared today. And it's so good. This is for all the parents out there. Perhaps if tearful little boys were comforted instead of shamed, there wouldn't be so many angry men struggling to express and empathize with emotion.
Wow, powerful.
Amen. You know what? My son tries to hide his tears all the time. And I said, let it out. You are a human being. We have emotions for a reason. You can cry. Right?
Thank you. And I saw another one for my parents out there. If you're a godparent, an aunt, a step parent, a biological parent, but it was so powerful. And it said, we don't understand why our kids keep things inside and keep things bottled up inside. When if we could just turn back the clock, what did we do when they got in trouble? What did we do? We put them in timeout. Yeah. Alone.
Reacted.
We reacted and put them in timeout alone and said, go be by yourself. Go process that by yourself. Kids, now I'm like, oh my gosh, like the mom that I am now, the aunt that I am now, the bonus mom that I am now, the god mom that I am now is so different than 10 years ago because of the work that I'm doing in myself. We wonder why our kids don't share stuff with us, but we told them to go to the corner and be quiet and be alone with it. And so we wonder why they keep it in. And so, and another great book for those that are just nerds like me and is called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's all about how when we don't process those emotions, we will physically manifest through our skin, through our gut, through our health. That when I lost my father in 2014, before I lost my mom, I had an immense amount of guilt because I wasn't a good daughter at the time. I wasn't a queen. I was all about myself. I was actually using drugs. It was just a bad point. So I had a lot of guilt. And he died alone and he died suddenly. And for about 6 months afterwards, ladies, I had these large weeping eczema spots all over my legs that would not stop weeping. And medicine, we went to all the doctors, nothing would help. And what I found out it was my body actually weeping for what was going on with me. And I went, this is the most amazing story. I went and I was at a doctor's office, a naturopathic doctor, and a woman sat across from me and she said to me, "Why are you holding it in?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, I've never met this lady, never seen her before. She didn't see my legs. They were covered up because I was really good expert at covering them. She said, why are you holding it in? And I said, huh? And in that moment, she saw my soul. And from that moment forward, I went to therapy. I began to talk about it, and you're going to know what happened. They cleared up. Yeah, they cleared up like almost instantaneously because my body recognized that I was going to let the grief go, let the shit go. Yes. So powerful. It's so powerful.
So wow.
Oh, that is something.
Well, Rachel,
isn't it?
Finding the purpose beyond sports, beyond our career, beyond the person we think that we are, relationships, life tragedy, 5 weeks with you will change your lives. And we're going to post all the information so that they can contact you, connect with you, keep being you. And honestly, you inspire more than you know, and you are loved more than you know. So thank you for the time today.
Thank you so much for what you're doing, Rachel. Yes. Please come on our show again.
Yes. Let's do a part 2.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We shall.
Okay. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks again, Rachel.
Bye, Rachel. Thank you.
Life, love, and lipstick.